Welcome to Invictus Motors for a review and a comparison between the 911 991 Gen 1 GTS and the 991.1 Carrera S. This was introduced in November 2011, whereas the GTS was introduced in November 2014. And I get asked often, what should I buy? Do I buy the GTS or do I buy the 991 Carrera S? But before I can answer the question, please don't forget to press that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up so we can carry on creating content like this. Now let's get into the differences between the two. Well, firstly, aesthetically, these are two very, very different cars. I'm not even talking about the mechanical differences in terms of the powertrain, performance, and just the general chassis setup of these two cars. But we'll begin with the aesthetics. Well, you can start off with the fact that the GTS has a sport design front bumper, whereas the 991 Carrera S has got the standard bumper that you would find on any 911. The GTS comes in extremely well spec'd, starting from the fact that these have the standard xenon headlights that will come from factory, whereas the GTS will have the PDLS dynamic cornering lights. Now, you will find these on 19-inch wheels, whereas the GTS on 20-inch wheels. The fact that the GTS here has the sport design side mirrors, and you can actually see how well sculpted these are in comparison to the Carrera S. Just the slight little touches. The fact you've got GTS badging here to remind you this is a GTS, whereas this is a Carrera 911. And you've got this beautiful little side skirt, which gives it a really aggressive look versus no side skirt. We'll get into the inside in a minute a little bit, but if you come all the way to the back, you will see some other differences. The fact this has got a redesigned rear bumper, the grills here at the top are different to the 911 Carrera S. The fact that the Carrera S as standard would come with this quad exhaust system, but the GTS as standard would come with these optional. The Porsche Torque Vectoring limited slip differential system, the Chrono Package, sports exhaust. The fact they come in an additional 10mm lowered over the PASM in the Carrera S, because the PASM on the Carrera S would be standard. So you've got a much lower sitting position. The powertrain difference is quite large between the two vehicles, but in this instance we'll talk about that in a minute, because I still would like to cover the fact that this has the rear axle of the 991 Carrera 4, whereas this is the 911 991 Carrera S, so it's a different rear axle. The chassis setup, and now onto the powertrain. This produces exactly to the book 395 brake horsepower. This is 420 brake horsepower, 440 Newton meters of torque versus 530 Newton meters of torque. And the 0 to 60 is where you see a really notable difference between the two, because this is able to do 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds versus 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. Could be 3.7, but 3.9. It's a lot of numbers and a lot of facts to really get across. And I'll actually open both the doors so our cameraman can actually get onto the inside of this. Which one did you go, right or left? Okay, we go this way. And what I will do is I'll treat you to a good test drive of the GTS as well. So hopefully you could see that the GTS sounds absolutely phenomenal. It's a really addictive car to drive in comparison to the 911 Carrera S. Well, it's got to be a commanding and a superbly capable and a fantastic car versus the 911 Carrera S, because, I mean, both of them are very similar mileage, but this would cost you 20 grand more as opposed to the 911 Carrera S. So it is there for a reason. This has the sport seats with the GTS badging here, and there's a couple of other smaller little cues that reminds you that you've got the GTS. It's got the Alcantara package. Overall, the GTSs are really, really well spec'd. I mean, they will give you a lot of standard, well-spec'd option on the interior when you are actually buying them as brand new. You've got the sport steering wheel, cruise control. You've got the center console littered with buttons. It's got the combination of Alcantara and leather, the 18-way adjustable sport seats with the fact that it's got lumbar support. I know some of those softer things are extra optionals, but just looking on the interior of this versus now in the 991 Carrera S, there are some pretty big differences. Now in the 991 Carrera S, you probably think, this is looking a bit bland, basic, what's going on? Aside from the fact it's got sport steering wheel, the center is definitely not littered with buttons and optionals as you would find it on the GTS. I mean, the fact that this has got Chrono Sports pack missing, the fact that, you know, you could have Alcantara and sport steering wheel as standard. I mean, this has been an optional on the Carrera S. This doesn't have, you know, the sport seats with 18-way adjustability, with lumbar support. And the fact is just overall the finish quality and the way it is on the inside, it's not on par with the GTS in any way, form or shape. But then again, what most people forget sometimes between these two lovely cars, on which the point I will end the review, is that the GTS has so much more pedigree, history, and overall, if one takes the time to read into where the GTS, the heritage of the GTS really comes from versus the 911, I'm sure you will all be looking for an extra £20,000 to buy the GTS rather than the 911. But I'm really curious to hear what you have to think of it. And again, don't forget to press that subscribe button, click like. We're at about 600 subscribers. We need all the support we can get to carry on making content like this. We do get some superbly exotic cars. But before we get carried away, let's go and drive the GTS. And maybe you might be treated to a really quick test drive of the 911 Carrera S so that we can just go through these little things really quickly. Let's not forget to unlock. This is my favorite part of doing these reviews, to get to drive it. Let's start. The sound is beautiful. Seatbelt first. And from the get-go, you get this really beautiful growl. Okay, handbrake off. Okay, lovely. So we are in the standard settings. No buttons pressed, just cruising along. And the other thing that I would like to tell you about the GTS is the GTS is really the car that people buy because they prefer to buy a 911 that they're comfortable with, that they can daily, as opposed to a turbo that isn't naturally aspirated, or a GT3 that they can't daily. So the soft spot really is the GTS. The car that is recommended and the car that is preferred is the GTS. We're still in the standard settings. Let's press sports exhaust, pass them on. It's this sound, I hope the microphone is picking it up. This is why you buy a GTS. This beautiful growl. And the downshifts are so beautiful. I mean, it pops and bangs. And let's just do this one more time. It has dropped all the way to the first gear. The fact that the sports button is on and PASM is on, it wants you to drive, you know, how you would want to drive a 911, not just sort of slouch around in some comfortable setting. Performance wise, produces fantastic figures. 420 brake horsepower, very torquey at 530 Newton meters of torque. The 0 to 60 is in 3.7 seconds. Earlier I said 3.9, but I think from memory it is 3.7. You still get pretty good economy. Wow, just so beautiful. Manually shifting down just to illustrate the point of the GTS. This is just how every 911 should sound like. The 991 GTS is the sound that I look for in a 911, and we will drive the 991 Carrera S next, the minute I get out of this in the next 10-20 seconds. But honestly, the commanding feeling and how driver focused a GTS in comparison to a standard 991 is, I mean, I would say that, you know, you're sitting in a totally different car in comparison to the 991 Carrera S. But to do this review justice, I mean, I've got to drive both. I've really got to give the 991 Carrera S a go. But before I can do that, let's just hear this exhaust. This is awesome. And we will do the exact same thing on the 991 Carrera S. And the 991 Carrera S is not gonna be sounding like this. Let's just get into it. Or let's switch this off quickly. We've got the drone up there, whereas here we had the benefit of 3 GoPros. Not this commanding, amazing sound that you got of the GTS. So from the get-go, a little quieter. The car is warm, so we'll put it in sports mode. Yes, it's great, but no way is it as good as the GTS. Honestly, it's not about how you drive it, and it's not about the changes or, you know, whatever spec you input into a Carrera S. The GTS is the GTS, and point blank, that's what it is. Performance wise, this does 395 brake horsepower through the 3.8 litre naturally aspirated direct fuel injected boxer flat 6 engine, 440 Newton meters of torque, and you get an average of approximately 30 miles per gallon. Fundamentally, these are two extremely different cars. But a 991 Carrera S is still a phenomenal, extremely capable car. I mean, to sit in it, to drive it, I mean, this is a dream car for anyone out there. I mean, now knowing that something like this is close to 10 years old, you've still got to pay mid £50,000 to buy a very well-maintained 911 Carrera S. So that in itself speaks for its So I hope you've enjoyed me driving these two cars to give you my perspective of what these two cars really are like and sort of the notable differences. And I hope you've enjoyed the review, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. For the time being, I'm going to be reversing to park next to the GTS. And it is on this note, my friends out there, it's been a pleasure having you as part of this review. And please stay tuned. Please stay tuned and keep an eye on future content. And it can be extremely intimidating being able to produce content in the winter, because as you can see right now, we're losing sunlight. So thank you very much. I'm going to be jogging on the spot now to get a bit warmer. But what a weather, what a day. Thank you. Bye-bye.